Welcome to the American Railroading Podcast, brought to you by the Revolution Rail Group, live from the great state of Texas. Join us as we educate, entertain, and explore the world of American railroading. Here's your host, industry veteran, Don Walsh.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the American Railroading Podcast. I am your host, Don Walsh, President and CEO of the Revolution Rail Group, the anchor sponsor for the American Railroading Podcast. We are a consulting and brokering firm in the railcar industry. So if you're needing any kind of consulting services, whether it's market analysis, process flow analysis, merger and acquisition assistance, we can help you with that. We can also help you with buying, selling, and leasing and subleasing of railcars. You can reach out to us today at 844-455-3434 or info@therevolutionrailgroup.com. You can also check out our full suite of services on our website at therevolutionrailgroup.com. So I'm going to apologize in advance, everybody. I just slammed my favorite Starbucks peppermint mocha, plug to Starbucks there. So if I'm talking a little too fast, that's why. But man, I was dragging today, producer John. So I needed a little caffeine.
I feel you there.
Yeah.
Me too.
Thanks. Yeah, right. It's been one of those days. But thank you all for joining us again today. And hopefully everyone had a wonderful Easter. I know that I had as good of an Easter as we could. I'll explain some of that a little bit later, but it was a beautiful weekend for it, for sure. Lots of kids picking up Easter eggs at our church. I think we had, for each, so we had 7 services at our church, and I think over 3 days, and I think we had 10,000 plastic eggs that they were putting out per service. And those things didn't last more than 40 seconds. I mean, it was great. It was a lot of fun. And the day before that, I did a fundraiser with, you guys know, I'm a chairman with Boots for Troops. So we had a Boots for Troops event, and we actually had the Easter Bunny come over in a helicopter and dump Easter eggs, not on the kids. That would be dangerous. We had the kids standing back out of the way, but over a field, and then the kids could go play and go get them. And that was really, really cool. Thankfully, the Easter Bunny did not fall out of the helicopter because I don't think we were insured. So that would have been bad. Mother's Day is coming up, folks, so don't forget about that. Just want to throw that out there. We all love our moms, right? So May 11th, by the time this airs, it'll only be a couple of 10 days away or whatever it is. So be ready to take care of your moms on Mother's Day. And it's also, as we're recording today, it is NFL Draft Day, and I'm really excited. I look forward to this day all year long. I do not play fantasy sports or any of that kind of stuff, but I still enjoy it. So hopefully everybody gets the players that they want. And if not, hopefully you're still successful. John, are you a Texans fan by any chance?
I mean, Houston pride always, but I'm not really into football, to be honest. I'm a baseball guy.
With the Astros' new hats and everything this year, I'm not sure how I feel about those.
Go Stros.
That's true. And congratulations to the Cubs for getting Kyle Tucker.
Absolutely.
Now we're regretting, of course.
And some of the Astros' best players are former Cubs, so
true story.
It's all good.
That's right. It's a fair trade. So thanks to all of you. We continue to be in the top 10% of all podcasts globally, which is truly a blessing and truly amazing. We've been downloaded in 49 countries around the world on 35 different platforms, including Apple and Spotify. Apple being number 1, Spotify being number 2. Just barely. They're 1 and 2. All-time downloads were number 1, or all-time downloads, the number 1 downloader is the United States, and then Canada and Australia. And for last month, just for the numbers for last month alone, Canada jumped back into second place. So welcome back, Canada. You were gone for a little while in 3rd, 4th, 5th place, but you've come rushing back. And we have Germany now in 3rd place, and we have Sweden, Switzerland, and the UK all tied for 4th place. So thank you all for all your downloads, for all your shares. Please continue to do that. I also want to say hello to our friends in Egypt, Vietnam, and the Dominican Republic. I love the Dominican Republic. I've been there a couple of times now. Please continue to download, subscribe, and share, and leave us reviews. So I know I say this every episode, but I can't emphasize this enough. Reviews really, really help us out a bunch. So it pushes us further and further out into the internet for people to find us, into the algorithms, the more that you give us reviews. So especially on Apple, because Apple, I think, is the originator of podcasts. So when you actually put a review out there on Apple, it really gets out to everybody. So thank you for all the reviews we've gotten. And please, if you haven't left us one yet, please leave us a 5-star review when you are able. Also, if you liked what you heard on the podcast, you can buy us a cup of coffee, kind of like the one I just had with all that caffeine in it. But seriously, you can go to our website at AmericanRailroading.net. You'll see a little yellow coffee cup at the bottom left-hand corner. You can click on that. You can buy us 1 cup, 3 cups, 5 cups, or however many cups you'd like. And it actually acts like a little gratuity to help us toward our endeavors on the podcast. So if you like what you heard on the podcast, you can buy us a cup of coffee, and it'll really help us out a bunch. So thank you to those of you that have and those of you that will. Don't forget, we have our own YouTube channel. So if you're listening to us right now on one of the podcast platforms you'd like to watch instead, we actually have a tremendous growth on the YouTube channel. Goodness, continues to grow exponentially. It's really something else. So apparently you guys don't mind looking at my mug on every episode, but I didn't shave today, forgive me, but it is growing in leaps and bounds. And what's really cool, folks, and it's also on the audio side, is we're telling there's a lot of new followers because you're going back and watching and listening to old episodes all the way back to season 1. We're in season 3 now. So that is truly unreal. We love to see that. So thank you. Continue to share. And the YouTube channel is YouTube at American Railroading Podcast. Again, it's YouTube at American Railroading Podcast. Please be sure to check out our online store. So our online store has all kinds of goodies in there, hats and t-shirts and hoodies, which rhymes with goodies. So there's lots of those, and challenge coins. So we made up challenge coins a few years ago now for specifically veterans of the U.S. Armed Forces that are railroaders. So it's specific. You'll see it. It's really neat. It's really custom to show railroad workers on one side planting a flag. It's really kind of neat. So check it out. Every purchase of those, a percentage goes towards our friends at Boots for Troops, a percentage of the sale. So check that out, please. And you can go to our website at AmericanRailroading.net and click on the stores tab and shop to your heart's desire. And please do. We're continuing to accept podcast sponsorships. So we have one platinum sponsorship at this time. We have one gold sponsorship and several silver sponsorships. So if you're interested in being a sponsor of the podcast, please don't hesitate to contact us, because sponsorships really help us to do what we do. So if you're watching right now, you'll see that the studio has changed, right? Well, it's actually a totally different studio. So we decided to reinvest, which is something we talked about in the first episode of this year, some changes that are coming, growth that's coming. And this is one of those things. So where we've actually reinvested in equipment and that to upgrade microphones and everything that's going to make your experience better, cameras, 4K cameras and stuff like that we're going to be implementing. So I'm really excited about that. And that also includes a studio of our own. So we're going to be doing some more remote as well. So we're going to be doing a lot of fun stuff at different museums and visiting with, customers of mine, whether it's a manufacturer or what have you, that you'll see more of that this year as well. So sponsorships help us do that. So if you're interested, please reach out to us at Marketing American Railroading Podcast. Marketing at AmericanRailroading.net. My apologies. Marketing at AmericanRailroading.net. And we can help you get all the information you need on sponsorship packages that are available. So in our last episode, we discussed the current status of our economy and various factors that influence it, including the potential trade wars and tariffs. So in this episode, I wanted to take the logical next step, logical to me anyway, where I wanted to take the discussion to our supply chain. So who better to have for the discussion on supply chain than a dear friend of mine and snappy dresser, I might say, Denson White. So Denson, you look great today, by the way, my friend. Denson White is Chief Commercial Officer for APM Terminals. He's based out of Pier 400 in the Port of Los Angeles in Long Beach, California. So Denson earned his Bachelor of Science degree in Logistics, Materials, and Supply Chain Management from Auburn University. He also earned his MBA in Information Technology and Finance from Auburn. Prior to Denson's role as CCO, he served as BCO of Sales at APM Terminals location in the Port of Mobile, Alabama, which is where I first met him. Denson's role as Chief Commercial Officer includes a focus on supply chain optimization, which includes shipping, trucking, and rail. So he's very, very busy. Continuous improvement and customer relations, which he's done plenty of. He travels everywhere. I'm so jealous. Since joining APM Terminals in 2014, Denson has literally traveled the world, as I just said, building customer relationships. Prior to his time at APM Terminals, Denson held leadership positions with companies such as Standard Furniture, Plan for Demand, and Pactiv, with responsibilities that include overseeing a private truck fleet, warehouse facilities, international freight, and domestic trucking, which provided him with opportunities to work with Kohl's, Tastykake, Snapple, Ross Clothing, and Hefty, just to name a few. In his spare time, Denson loves to spend time with his wife and 2 daughters, who are 7 and almost 5. She'll be 5 by the time this airs, actually. So happy birthday. And the kids are big into swimming and skiing. And Denson is an avid skier himself, and he loves soccer and experiencing the atmospheres of the game and its fans all around the world. And Denson travels the globe for work. And he also likes to explore and experience the different parts of the globe as he travels there. And for those of you that don't know, Denson was also on season 1. He was our 5th guest on season 1. So it was 2 years ago already, which is really, really hard to believe that it's been that long. But you haven't changed a bit, my friend. And welcome back to the American Railroading Podcast.
Yeah, glad to be here. Super excited to discuss today's topic. It's a hot topic, right? It's on the tip of everybody's tongue. It's big in the media, and we're excited to have a little bit of opinion and discussion on this today.
Well, and I'm glad to have you back, my friend. As I keep calling my friend, because he is my friend. We've been friends for years now, originally meeting at the Southeast Association of Rail Shippers Conference, or SEERS, on Hilton Head Island, South Carolina, which I love to visit. If you haven't lived there, or visit, well, you should live there too. But if you haven't traveled there to visit, you really need to. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. And at the time, at the conference, I hosted a private beer tasting event because I do like craft beers. And my friend John the Brewer, that is not his official last name, but that's what we call him, John the Brewer, because his name's John. He's a brewer. Just seemed to make sense. He is the master brewer now, and I believe partner at Lincoln and South Brewing Company on Hilton Head Island. So if you're on the island, you're visiting for vacation, golfing, what have you, please go visit John the Brewer and check out Lincoln and South Brewing. Little free plug there for you, John. So welcome back after 2 years, my friend. So how are you? How are you doing right now? And just you personally, and then we'll talk about the company here in a minute.
Yeah, things are great. Living out on the West Coast and in LA is a lot of people, the reason this city's so big is because a lot of people move here, and there's a reason for it. So it's great being here, but you're also at the center of international supply chain, and that's the reason we're here talking today. But it's definitely it's a great time working out here, and it's been a very busy past year. And with everything happening in the economy right now, it just makes things even busier because you're trying to figure out what the next step is. So there's nothing fluid, nothing the same. It's always something changing. So that keeps us all on our toes.
Yeah. And a big change, I would imagine, from Mobile to Los Angeles. And since you've moved there, right? Big difference.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And, big city, big things, Olympics coming here, World Cup coming here. As an organization, one of the major players in the port, we're involved with things. There was major fires here in LA. We get a call from the mayor's office and they need something moved on a Sunday afternoon. And that call came, and we were able to find one of our partner trucker friends that was literally sending out a text to people who has a truck that has a driver moving in it right now. We need to get some masks moved up, into some areas. And that was really neat that we were able to work directly with so many government agencies during that time. And that's just one example of many. But it's big news a couple of months ago. And when you're in supply chain and you have availability to trucks and you're working with the agencies, it's just really neat to actually be an influence here in a major city that's so big and so vast that you just never think that little old me can help. And we're right in the middle of assisting and helping our first responders.
That's amazing, and I would expect nothing less of you. And when trouble calls, you go running. So thank you for your help and APM's help throughout that whole process. So the girls, let's talk about the girls for just a second. They're getting big. So you share information with me all the time. They're getting so darn big. Do they get to travel with you when you travel for work?
Yeah, it's always great. It's you're afforded the effort to travel, and whenever you get to take them along, they get to experience the world. And I'm just in this industry, you get blessed by being able to see different things, go different places, and they're always excited to jump on. We have these little roller scooters that they have their little bag and all their toys for the airplane and their coloring books, and they scoot through the airport. And it's actually bad whenever you go through the airport and people remember you from the last trip a couple of weeks ago because you're just there enough. But it's funny watching the girls scoot through airports and just love taking them anywhere you go. I mean, it's really great.
Do they have any favorite places or things to do while you guys travel?
I think their favorite thing is the Sky Club because they get free candy.
That's what I like about it too.
That's it, right? That's what we all like.
That's what's important. Little things in life really matter.
That's it.
Well, very good. And our original episode together back in season 1, episode 5 was called Supply Chain, the relationship between ports and rail. And believe it or not, man, it's still getting a ton of downloads. I was just looking the other day and it's still getting downloads today. So I think it's just great. And it's a really compliment to you and what you brought to the table in the episode. So thank you again for that. And you should be very proud of that, what we did together in that episode.
Yeah, Don, we talked a year and a half ago, 2 years ago about coming out of COVID. And it was a pivotal time. And how did things happen during COVID, coming out of COVID, and what were we doing to get out of that? We're back in a similar situation right now. We have a major disruption in our supply chain. We have major changes happening with political decisions. Before it was a pandemic, a situation that was occurring, but now we have the same uncertainties. What's happening next? What are the tariffs happening? All the pieces there. So you have a very similar situation that's totally different dynamics of why. But again, when it comes to supply chain and actually moving goods, we have the same uncertainties. What's happening right now? All right, but we got to figure that out. Then what's going to happen in the next couple of months? What are we doing right now? What did we learn during COVID that will get us set up to make sure we're successful this time versus having ships laying around and backups on rail and backs up in the supply chain? Hopefully, with not being a pandemic situation, we can come out of this with a much better end result versus what we did just a couple of years ago.
And we're going to dive into all of that, my friends. So I hope you're ready. Roll up your sleeves because we're diving.
There you go.
So since we visited together 2 years ago now, you've had some great growth at APM. Let's talk about APM for a minute and Pier 400 specifically at the Port of Los Angeles. This was really neat. I read up on this here recently, but in 2024, as reported in trains.com, you completed a $73 million rail expansion program to expand the on-dock yard at the container terminal. The project added 5 new storage tracks totaling 31,000 linear track of feet. And the use of the new rail yard is projected to eliminate an estimated 1,200 truck trips per day by 2040. So that is absolutely astounding. So is there anything you want to share with us about the growth at APM other than that, or expound upon that yourself?
Yeah, and it's not, most of your audience is concerned about, or main focus is on rail and what happens there. Here we have a major expenditure with the Port of LA, the railroads, and making the infrastructure better here closer to the port, right? So that's the key of getting the trains out of the corridors, coming into this harbor and into this gateway, and getting the trains spotted and ready to move into the container terminals. One of the lessons learned during COVID was you might have labor, but does the rest of the supply chain get the containers and get the rail cars into the terminal for that labor then to execute? And that was a big lesson learned. So that's a piece that was found. Get the trains, do the expansions and everything you need to get those rail cars, to get those containers closer to the actual work. Great. Adding this infrastructure allows this to happen and allows for a lot of efficiency. Not only are we doing this here next to APM terminals, but there's other terminals right nearby. The Port of Los Angeles is spending the effort to do the exact same replication at other terminals. This just makes our entire supply chain and the LA Long Beach gateway just a better, sufficient way of getting cargo from origin to the U.S. port and then to where we need to in the destination, whether that be a very fast-growing Texas market, your Midwest markets, which have always been a very strong piece, but you also have your other hubs that may be a little bit smaller, that, your Kansas Cities, your Salt Lakes, that are viable places to move cargo in and out and are growing their supply chains to actually handle more international cargo. And we have to be able to match their growth. And that's what we're doing here in this harbor. And you're talking about APM terminals in general. There's also a major move in our facility in Mobile, Alabama, where we're moving and adding in inland rail points in the northern part of the state and the central part of the state. Fantastic infrastructure spin there with the Port of Alabama, with the Port of Mobile, should I say. And then also at the terminal, they're expanding their on-dock rail availability to make that faster. Also, our facility in New Jersey just got completed with a new concession, and that is also a very large connection into the Midwest and Northeast with moving trains in and out of there. They have been excellent at speed. They just did a major on-terminal expansion just a couple of years ago themselves to help move things from the vessel to rail. And they're actually promoting right now where they're able to move those containers off vessel to the rail and out of the port complex in under 2 days. And it's been very successful. Many of the boxes moving within 24 hours. So very exciting things happening from an intermodal perspective within our company as a whole through the U.S.
Going back to the LA port for just a moment, I imagine the fires that you mentioned earlier had an impact. So what was the impact from the fires, and are all things rectified as far as the port is concerned?
Yeah, where the fires were is such national news. And whenever they say the word LA, you just think the entire city's burning. But in reality, it was so far north from where many of the logistics areas are that the supply chain really wasn't affected much. You had a lot of businesses, a lot of homes totally destroyed, families affected. Some local families that work here at the port do live in those areas. But it was really on the other side of town. So from an actual what worked with international cargo, at least, not majorly affected. Some domestic manufacturing, some domestic warehousing was affected quite a bit in that area. But from an international perspective, so much is here on the southern part in the southern LA, Long Beach area, and then out in the Inland Empire with a lot of what connects the international cargo that we've been kind of really not too badly affected by those fires from an actual supply chain standpoint. So the goods keep moving, thank goodness. Now it's just time to rebuild the businesses and the homes that were destroyed.
Yeah, and I continue to pray for everybody affected because that was really very massive and terrible. So I'd like to take a moment just to recognize our gold sponsor, EnviroServe. EnviroServe is America's premier provider of comprehensive, reliable, effective, and eco-friendly environmental solutions for the rail industry. Their rail services include mobile railcar cleaning, flaring, interior blasting and transloading, removal and replacement of tank car service equipment, and leak testing. Complete HAZ and non-HAZ waste handling, management, remediation, and disposal services, 24/7 emergency spill response, and more. To learn more, please visit their website at www.enviroserve.com. So to recap part of our conversation from episode 5, you mentioned intermodal moments ago, and intermodal railcars are an important part of the U.S. supply chain. So while intermodal railcars make up only 4% of the railroad national fleet, according to the Union Pacific website at up.com, 48% of all rail traffic is generally intermodal shipments. Now, according to Wikipedia, and Wikipedia is never wrong, intermodal freight transport is defined as involving the transportation of freight in an international container or vehicle using multiple modes of transportation, including rail, ship, aircraft, and truck, without any handling of the freight itself and with changing modes, which is very interesting. So the method reduces cargo handling and therefore improves security, reduces damage and loss, and allows freight to be transported faster. So can you give us some examples of how the intermodal freight process works without any handling?
Yeah, the vessel comes in, you grab the container off the vessel, and everything stays within that unit, right? It's a beautiful method of transportation. And now that the rail networks are set up so strong, we continue to add infrastructure within terminals, within inland rail hubs, that now you just move the box to the rail equipment, that car gets loaded, moved on a train, most of the time in lots of about 200 containers, so about 100 total cars, individual cars moving in that train. Sometimes even a little bit larger to the 250 to 275 mark in the U.S. But yeah, you get a lot of equipment moving. These things move daily in and out of the harbors and the corridors. Whenever you start talking about total velocity of these trains departing, you wind up with a lot of cargo moving daily, where it's upwards of 3,000 containers going out of the facility, out of the harbor a day, going into inland points all over the U.S. And of course, that's just the LA Long Beach, right? Just think of Oakland, Seattle, all the places in the Southeast and East Coast that also move these trains daily. So it's just a large quantity of cargo that the container gets to be placed directly on the well car and moved in. And whenever it gets discharged at the inland hub, that container just shows up in the back of somebody's warehouse, right? And then that's the first time since origin, since either a manufacturing facility or a warehousing facility in the origin country, that the cargo's touched. So that's the beauty of the container, the security, the availability of it getting there without having to be touched multiple times individually. It just makes the cargo move consistent and flowing, and you get the cargo to your destination without much damage. And that's beautiful.
It is. And intermodal plays a vital role in supply chain. And as our supply chain plays a vital role in the U.S. economy as well. So for those that weren't listening in episode 5 of season 1 or haven't listened yet, and shame on you if you haven't, please go back and listen to that when you're done listening to us today. Can you take a moment just to share with our audience what supply chain is?
Yeah, it's the thought and mentality of moving our goods, moving items back and forth. And it's not just retail goods, right? It's the raw materials that make up this supply chain of goods. So your individual links have to come together in different spots to create your entire flow. And whenever you talk intermodal, especially, you're talking about a link from a vessel to a domestic terminal, and then that links to a rail car, and then the rail car to an inland destination, and then the truck picking up and moving. But even in between all of those links, you have you have your customs movement. You have maybe even having to do an inspection within that and making that happen. And also the flow of goods and making sure that you're scheduling it right to your warehouse, to where then you're scheduled to move quickly through the warehouse and onto the consumer shelf, or quickly to the warehouse or holding spot to then go to a manufacturing line. All these things have to line up in the correct flow, and hence that becomes the chain of events that occur. And now we get goods showing up when you want them and when the consumer wants them, or when the manufacturing line needs them. We've all talked about just in time for many, many years and what happens there, and how you get the goods to show up on that production line on the day that you actually need them. Anything else of storing cargo and moving it, that's a waste, right? So we need this to show up at the time. Hence, the supply chain becomes the very, very vital piece of us cutting out waste, but also making sure that we have it there at the right time, because we need to have it there so either the consumer can purchase it, right? We don't want empty shelves, and you certainly don't want to be on the manufacturing line and be sitting there waiting on a part to show up from some other place because it didn't get there on time. Very vital to everything that we do, not only from a consumer standpoint, but also a manufacturing standpoint.
Yeah. And in our last episode with economic analyst Tom Landstreet, he referred to the government as the 800-pound gorilla in the room because the government is always, as he says, tinkering with regulations, taxes, interest rates, and most recently, tariffs, et cetera. So, which ultimately all affect our economy in some fashion. So, as you mentioned earlier, tariffs are a hot topic right now, as President Trump is applying tariffs to goods being imported to the United States via U.S. ports like yours in LA and Mobile from countries who themselves place tariffs on us and our goods that are exported to them from the United States. So, tariffs can increase the costs of not only the goods, but also their sourcing materials, which can impact the company's sourcing decisions, inventory management, logistics, operational strategies, and even staffing. So I'm just curious, what, if anything, have you seen as an impact thus far made by the tariffs to the U.S. supply chain already?
Yeah, this is extremely hot topic at this point because, the mindset has been there that Trump did this in administration 1. Well, let's remember that many of the things that occurred during that administration stayed during the next administration. And now this is a compound or a next move within that motion. It's a bargaining chip for the government, and everybody has their opinion on is it working? Is it going to work? Does it not work? What's the backbone of what's occurring here? But in the end, it's making people make decisions, right? No matter what your opinion is of the tariff and what's going on, let's just talk about what is actually occurring now. And so here we are in April and May 2025 as this is being recorded. And what has affected us immediately? A very, very strong end of 2024 and a very strong beginning of 2025 as we began this year with cargo flows. A lot of people were anticipating this, right? So especially you had a November election, a January time that execution begins, and then now here in April, the fast forward to some of the international markets in the actual public decisions that have been going on. Many companies have already been making the plans and efforts to what are we going to do when things happen within the political landscape. Hence, whenever things started happening in the political landscape, people's execution plans, companies' execution plans immediately got put into place. They already had a game plan. Hence, those game plans were very quick to occur. And one of the items as we speak right now at this exact time, we have seen as a vessel schedule. So all the vessels coming. Now remember, this is LA Long Beach. So there is a very large influx of things coming from Asia markets. We have seen 28 total vessels that have decided to what they call blank call during the month of May. So out of all the vessels that called this harbor, there's about 28 of them that throughout the month of May are deciding not to come. Now, many of these vessels call each week. So many of these vessel strings would be calling 4, maybe 5 times within the month. So out of all the entire harbor, which we get, upwards of 200 vessel calls from Asia. And I think you're seeing a pretty good chunk of that, somewhere in the 15 to 20% mark of vessels being pulled and just choosing not to run that week or a couple of weeks in a row during that. So a significant immediate change to what's been going on with the tariffs.
Well, and increasing U.S. tariffs on our trade partners, whether warranted or otherwise, can result in a trade war with other countries, such as the one currently proposed anyway, or potential on the verge of developing with China. So if a full-blown trade war were to develop with someone like China, what potential impact could that have on U.S. port operations and the overall U.S. supply chain?
Yeah, Don, the thing here is it's not just what's coming to the U.S. Our exporters are also feeling this because now the cost of goods, whenever you start doing the war piece of this, the cost of our exports, and whether that be food items or raw materials or things like that, are getting hit. And they're strategically getting hit on items that can be sourced from other countries. Brazil is a big trade partner with Asia. They have many other large trade partners. So it's very strategic in what they do. What can we affect the U.S., but we can source from other areas? Because this is a global network of items. So there is a very strategic piece here that we see an immediate halt of many U.S. exports. So now your total flow, and we talked about it a while ago, you have a chain of events that have to occur to make things happen. Now all of a sudden you see those pieces occurring where exports are affected, not just the imports.
Well, and you mentioned COVID earlier, and that's where we talked in our last episode together. We saw shippers at that point holding on to empty containers for storage out of fear of losing potentially their container usage, and also they needed some place to kind of hoard stuff. So right. That caused container shortages at the ports as a result. So with some shippers having concerns about tariffs, increasing costs, causing inventory shortages, again, are we seeing folks hoarding the containers like we did back then?
Yes. So we talked about this before, and here we go. So what happened during COVID was, again, a pandemic put the brakes on. Everybody got scared. Don't go outside, don't do anything. But that also affected the labor market very much. So hence the labor market was told, don't go to work. Everybody stopped. However, then we started getting these checks. Then the checks means, hey, I have money that I can go spend. Let me go get my retail goods. So there was an immediate, within 4 or 5 months, an immediate surge of cargo, because now all of a sudden, let's get back to work. Let's get back in the marketplace and happen here. Now, what happens with tariffs? Here, we still have a working marketplace. Everybody wants to still get their paycheck. Everybody wants to, still engage and go to work. So we're not going to see the same stop in the total supply chain. What we're seeing is a segment of this getting affected dramatically, where people are saying, oh, stop, pause, time out, don't ship anything for the next couple of weeks, next couple of, a month, because we need to figure out what this trade tariff is. Does it hold? Does it get repealed? When is a tariff enacted? Is it enacted while my goods are already on water and then it shows up at a port? Oh gosh, now I have to pay this. And what do I do to keep myself from that? The positive here is we still have a labor force that is still going to consume the goods. We're still going to get our paychecks. We're not worried about that piece of it within this versus the tariff. Now, the one thing we are worried about is this is a network, and there's a steady rhythm to everything that's going on. A container comes in, we take that container, we go empty it. We put that into a warehouse, and that winds up on a shelf or in a manufacturing line. Woohoo, good. That empty then comes back, and it gets shipped back over to its origin ports. Now, all of a sudden, you say brakes on 28 ships. Well, that means I have 28. I have all these containers coming in, but now I'm missing 28 ships to load these empties back to Asia. So now I start getting the chinks in the chain. So do people have to hold these off from the terminal because the terminal can't consume them all? Do we start taking up chassis again because I can't return because now somebody put the brakes on vessels coming, hence I can't keep this flow going? It just creates that bullwhip effect that occurred during COVID. Stop everything. Oh, wait, now I have ship as fast as you can. Oh, wait, now I have too much on my shelf. Oh, wait, here comes a government check that then allows me to do everything. The bullwhip is what really affects, because the supply chain and logistics is about smoothing the process. Now you start throwing in weeks of disruption or question marks or flow. That's where we really got to concentrate on how do we keep things moving? How do we keep from having containers being held off port? Consumers having to hold things on their yard, on chassis, which then creates a chassis problem. And if I would turn into not having enough chassis, then I can't go pick up the next import. And that's what's blew up last time. So how do we work to avoid that? And many people are already working to say, how can we create depots to put these empty containers if we need to hold them for a couple of extra weeks? Can we get as much back to Asia right now versus having to, get everything out because the ships are still coming? The ship not calling is in May. What are we doing to plan for that going forward? So there are some lessons learned that are already getting enacted now, planning for what we see coming in the next couple of weeks.
Well, and I would like to think there's some best practices we picked up from the COVID crisis in supply chain. Like you mentioned earlier, just-in-time inventory, which we thought was a great cost savings right before COVID happened. Then COVID happened, and it did not go well because we didn't have inventory. And then the next person didn't have inventory, and the next person didn't have inventory. So it was this big domino effect.
Don, the biggest thing is we had inventory. We had everything we needed, but I was missing that one part, sure, and maybe a key part. So that became one of the biggest, I'm in a manufacturing line and I'm missing the main component to sell this vehicle. I'm missing the main component to put this part together, right? And that became the frustration, especially during COVID, because something was missing.
So are there things that we learned from that we can apply now that we won't run into the same kind of issues? What would be some examples of that?
Yeah, I think that many companies are, being very careful, right? Here, we're not running into issues where entire countries are told not to go to work. Hence, something that may have been sourced from a certain country, now you just can't get it. The other side of this over the past couple of years is that people have been working on backup sourcing, right? So I've been sourcing this from a country. I do have an alternate sourcing option to get the same type of component, a similar type piece from somewhere else. So I've seen a lot of that occurring, and that's where the tariffs come into it. Also, here in this situation, you can still take the good. The cost is just going to be higher. So guess who's going to pay for that? The consumer, right? So now that becomes the piece of what you have to watch out for. Does the consumer still try to consume this? Does the manufacturer still try to build this? Do we still try to import in the retail good and just pass that cost on to the consumer? And if that occurs, does the consumer still buy? Do we watch inflation? There will be other factors that we'll see in the summer and later on if the tariffs hold.
So the good news is it sounds like we have some stopping points, some hold points in the process that we didn't have before, and some backstops, as you said, that we didn't have in the process before COVID that happened as a result of COVID. So even though it was a horrible situation, we've learned some things. And so that should help us hopefully through this process as well.
Right.
So that's good news. So What import markets are you seeing as being strong right now?
Yeah, not everything's stopping, right? And you have good trade partners that are out there, some countries that will not be hit as hard as others, and hence things continue to flow. And there are countries that are out there. The surprising thing with the administration is how broad this was, right? And at the beginning, they went over after very close allies, right? Your Canadian and Mexico markets were greatly influenced at the very beginning of this administration's change, and that wasn't necessarily quite the thing the first time around. So while there were some expectations of went on, there has been some surprises here, and now people are having to pivot. The nice thing about it, though, is not nice thing. That's not the right word, but the positive for a consumer, for a manufacturer, is that many things that are occurring right now, it's not like it's a overwhelming surprise. So it is something that has been discussed. You've been able to sit at your board meetings. You've been able to sit with your decision makers within your companies, and things have at least been able to be discussed. Now, the next step is what becomes true reality. And I think that's the disruption that we're seeing right now. What tariffs hold? What tariffs get delayed another 30 days? And if they get delayed 30 days, do we push? Do they get delayed, get wiped off the books? Those are the questions that we're all trying to get from the administration and watching daily. And the good companies have people right there next to all of this that's focusing on this and paying attention daily to what's coming out of Washington, D.C. and coming out of these decision making, because they can pivot very quickly. The companies that, you're trying to do your daily job and you're trying to watch this and you're trying to make decisions, those are the ones that are struggling very, very hard. Some of your major companies just this week, while this is being recorded here at the end of mid to late April, you have had major retailers at the White House in D.C. this week having discussions of what they're seeing and doing. So, no matter what you think about the decision and the administration, because everybody has their political views, one of at least the things that I'm seeing is people are at least able having a voice or some type of discussion with the administration, which at least is, I just see that as somewhat of a positive where, they at least have some voice to what's going on here. So let's see what happens with that, and then also see how that influences the decision making over the next couple of months.
So what U.S. export markets do you see as strong right now?
Export markets that are strong, that's a tough one. Not a lot. Your food, your agriculture are all getting hit hard because of the uncertainties out there and the items that are being able to be sourced from other areas. So it's just not a good. It's not good out there for a lot of people, and that's the confusing thing about how do tariffs help us? And if you look very short term, it's all a disaster, right? This doesn't help anybody. But in the long term, you hope that somebody has a plan and that plan comes to fruition. But that plan isn't going to be seen in the next weeks and months. It's a month, year out plan of strengthening our economy and things like that. The tariff hurts a lot here right now, and the export market I think is one of the ones that is probably affected the most, and it's felt by a lot of very large influential states, and you see that especially in the Midwest with agriculture and food, in the central U.S. And even in the Southeast, where you have been having a growing agriculture lumber market and cotton market. All are suffering right now.
Well, and speaking of that, what challenges in general, what challenges are the ports facing right now?
Yeah, I think our biggest item is how do we survive over the next couple of months with all the changes and what is the customer market. It's hard to get the intel because many companies hold this very tight, right? Because it's their strategic plan of how they're going to survive. And that doesn't get published in public markets. Our biggest thing is the disruption, right? So you're planning for volumes that are at a consistent pace, and then all of a sudden they drop. And the one question, okay, good, I can plan for that drop. How fast do they come back? Hence, what do I do with my labor during this downward trend? We saw during COVID, and it was happening. Is it going to be a U trend or is it going to be a V trend? And we found out it was a V trend, and it was a very fast V trend back up. What happens here? Do we have a rebound in July and August? With things, the tariffs get pulled back, and if they get pulled back, do we have an immediate surge again that we see a very fast return in June and July? Or if the tariffs stick, do we have a very poor May, June, July, August, and when does it come back? Because, everything's being said, hey, part of the tariffs is you're going to put jobs in America and people are going to have money to spend and we're going to bump up our economy. Okay, yay, rah, rah, rah. Well, when does that come? Right. And do we have some things that are affected? So I think that's the biggest question over the next couple of months. How fast do we see that rebound? How strong is that rebound? And we have to watch very closely as a terminal and as ports to make sure we're not cutting too deep, because everybody's looking at costs. Right? Whenever you don't have as much cargo flowing through, you have to watch out with labor situation, spending, all the pieces there that any company looks at as you don't have as much cargo flow. And hence, how do we rebound? What do we do in the short term? What do we do in the midterm and long term with everything that we're doing? And hopefully this is a short term May, June push. And then we get back to a peak season time where people naturally bring in more goods heading into the holiday season. And that's it. I've talked to one company that is very concerned about this timing, because this timing would affect back to school sales. Well, back to school sales are all cargo that would be being shipped in the April, May, early June time period. And a head person says, oh, we got to cut all of this out because of the tariffs. But in reality, we have to have these goods on the shelf because it is specific to that time frame. Hence, what do we do with these goods that need to be shipping now? That's a good question, right? And that's something that as a market, we're already thinking in the supply chain, what's going to happen in that late July, August shelf space.
Yeah. And I imagine we're going to have to pivot from what it sounds like. We're going to be prepared to pivot as a supply chain, to use a friend's word, right? Pivot.
Correct.
Pivot.
Correct.
So what would you say are things that we're doing well as a supply chain right now? And in what ways do we need to make some improvements?
Yeah, the beautiful thing is we just had a major disruption a couple of years ago. We've had a very strong market in 24 and early 25. So, we've seen that, and now we have this little bit of a cut. The beautiful thing is just a couple of years ago, we saw a major cut. And what happened there? So we're using those lessons learned. We talked about that a little bit earlier, and we're hoping that now as we head into this situation, that we're using a lot of those pieces, that other people keep a level head, know that things aren't going away, right? There is a tariff involved here. There's a higher cost of doing business potentially in the short term. And at that point, how do we just move through this time frame, which is hopefully a blip? And if that becomes the true reality, good. I think our biggest concern going forward is, does this flip you into recession? Does this flip you into something else that becomes a broader, longer term situation? Or does it just cool the economy a little bit, and then we see a surge back at the end of the year? Those become your big questions that we all have to find out over the next couple of months.
And I know this is hard to say because things are kind of uncertain, as you've said a couple of times now, but any recommendations to those that are involved in supply chain for the near future?
Yeah, I think a lot of people have already planned for this, right? I think a lot of people have worked with this. I think the biggest question now is not necessarily the planning of the supply chain from our company's aspect. It's really what happens to the consumer, what happens to these manufactured goods, where does the cost get passed along to, which companies are able to consume some of those costs by reducing cost in other areas, right? I think that's where a lot of people do, because now's the time for smart thinking companies to figure out how to cut out some other costs, to absorb some of these places that they only have sourcing from places getting hit by tariffs, and how do we handle that? There is definitely a piece here as well of, supply chains are going to potentially shift. And I think part of the focus here is to bring some of these goods back. So what industries are being affected that bring goods back to the U.S., bring manufacturing back to the U.S., bring retail goods that get sourced back to the U.S.? I think those are the places where the smart business person is looking to say, how do I take advantage of that? Where are these businesses going to go? Where are they going to locate at? And then hence, as I'm thinking 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the road, where as a railroad person, where as a domestic trucking group, where do I now go look for these positives and these advantages going forward? Because whenever we have these major shifts, someone's going to take advantage of it. And where do we find those places that are going to be the sources of product going forward?
And if you had to pick one thing that we've discussed today so far for our audience to take away, what would that one takeaway be? What would you want them to take away from this?
Yeah, it's tough. You have a lot of media bias, and I think that if anybody's listening to this, I'm trying not to get political. I'm a business person. I'm trying to move containers. I want as much containers to move through here as possible, and supply as much to our manufacturing and to our end consumer as possible. We just play in the sandbox that's being handed to us from DC, and as much influence as we can provide to them, we're trying to, right? Because we are a major port, we're a major facility within that port, and we're trying to say what we could do. But we also understand there's some administration mindset of what's going on. I think that the one takeaway is, most of the people who are listening to this podcast, you're not here to listen to this from a political standpoint. You're here to listen to this from a railroad and a supply chain and a business standpoint. Take the political mindset of this out and see where you can take advantage of these situations. Whenever items are being placed in our hand by the government, there's places where us as individuals and us as businesses can actually take advantage of this. Because if you're smart and you're looking ahead, you don't just grumble and get aggravated by what's happening right in front of you. You look at how that's changing the business, it's changing the way things are going. Look at the root reason why these administration changes are being done, and then go look for the opportunities. There are opportunities out here. There will be growth out here. And even if we do have a recession, what do we say a lot of times in business and in the economy? A recession is just a time for the smart people to find the opportunities. So let's go out there, let's keep that kind of mindset, and let's see where we can keep our economy moving. It's been a great couple of years, right? We've had barring that COVID situation, and even during that, you look back and it was just a blip. It felt like it was going to be the end of the world, but in reality, in business, it was a blip of what was happening. Hopefully this is the same, and we come out of this just as strong as we did through 22, 23, 24, and hopefully in 25, 26, 27, our economy continues to stay strong.
Well, and one thing I've always loved about you, Denson, is your energy. You always have such great energy, and you can tell that you love what you do. So what is your favorite part about what you do?
Yeah, it's trying to figure this out, right? It's getting thrown the challenge, and then working with very different mindsets. I'm looking outside my window here. I have a ship out here from Taiwan that's going to be hit majorly, right? It's a Chinese controlled territory, right? So what happens there? I have one sitting out here from Korea with Hyundai. So I have an Evergreen vessel, a Hyundai vessel. I have one from Hapag, so a German vessel, and then one from Maersk, Copenhagen. So you're 2 European and 2 Asia services that are calling here right now. And it's just really neat to be working with these different dynamics and who's pulling the strings and who's doing what around here, and then also trying to figure out what's going on with a local truck market. We just had the Harbor Trucking Association in this morning. They're very concerned about these things, and it's great working with people like that. It's great working with the railroads, and we're going to get through this, right? It's going to continue happening. How do we do it without disruption? We know there's going to be disruption without major disruption like it happened, and how can we share information out there to keep people flowing? Those are the things that really excite me, Don. And how do we better ourselves, and how do we make sure that it isn't just total confusion in our marketplace, and we share information, right? That's the reason you joined a discussion like today. How do we share information? How do you get a perspective? Because many of your people listening are going to be railroad-centric people. I'm given a perception of what's happening from a terminal perspective. So a totally different perspective here than what your normal audience is. But that's where we learn. And that's the cool thing about being able to pause a few minutes out of my day, and then for you to stop and spend your time and effort to have these type of discussions and to share the knowledge amongst us all. And I really appreciate the time and the effort with this today.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. And if somebody wanted, let's say there's a young person coming out of college right now, wants to get into the industry that you're in, working with ports and shipping, how would you, what would your recommendation, I guess, be, or what would your advice be to somebody looking to join your industry?
Yeah, there's so many pieces that tie into this. I was just talking about it this morning. We have 40,000 different truckers, individual truck license plates that call through our facility in a short period of time of about 6 to 8 months. That means you have to have a lot of dispatchers, a lot of trucking companies, a lot of people working with that. So from an international side of things, you have multiple avenues. Not only that, you can work directly with the ocean lines. You can work directly with customs house brokers, NVOs, people like Expeditors, Kuehne+Nagel, your FedExes, and people like that that do that. And then I'm not even talking about the nameplates that we all go out and buy every day. Your Targets and your Kohl's and your Nikes and Pumas and people like that. This industry is just so broad. I have an intern that just joined us this week. And, the question I said, you have the next couple of months for us to help you understand what goes on here. But then you have all of these different places that you can now go out to and give expertise to people. And we all do that, every one of us, right? Every one of us that are listening to this podcast, if you work with a railroad, you're working with hundreds, if not thousands of customers every day that touch you. So it's not just a thing whenever you're talking to someone coming out of school, it's not just working with a terminal. There's so many pieces that touch us for the railroads. In a railroad piece that we're touching here, we're dealing with ops, planners, people that are working with the physical movement and how do we repair things. I mean, it's one of the things you do, Don, right? You guys help do the repairs and the consulting there to make sure that the actual rail car keeps moving, right? That's a humongous piece of this that most people don't even think about when you're coming out of school. But there's so many components here that pull this thing together.
Yeah, and we definitely need welders. So,
Right.
Right?
You get paid well.
Right. The things we don't think about. Yeah, absolutely. You can have a whole career, make a 6-figure income being a welder. And that's no joke. And I tell people all the time, if you want to go to trade school, don't be ashamed of that. We have a great need for that. And Micro Works, I'm a big fan of Micro and Micro Works. Check that out if you guys aren't familiar. And, he has a scholarship program specifically for blue collar jobs. And I think that's a wonderful thing. And we need to promote things like that more because we need you guys. We need you for sure. So are you going to be in any events coming up here soon that you'd like to tell people about?
I'll be speaking next week. By the time this airs, it's probably right around that time. But you have a big thing in my university, Auburn University. I get to do that. But of course, going into next fall, INA Expo, which is here in Long Beach, we're going to be a big piece of that. But INA Expo, and also going to their business event here in a couple weeks, which will be in Kansas City. So very close to the railroads, and we love moving it. We're moving a lot of cargo in and out of this port via about 30% of everything that comes to our terminal goes inland via the railroads. So very much excited about that. Hopefully get to go by and see our friends at UP while in Kansas City, make the drive up to Omaha. So yeah, it's always exciting in this industry to go visit with our railroad friends.
And when you're in KC, don't forget to go to Jack Stack Barbecue.
Oh, it's good stuff.
Get some of that cheesy corn.
It's good stuff.
Big fan. Okay. So what else would you like to share with our audience before we go? Because believe it or not, our hour's almost up already.
Yeah, I really appreciate everybody's time. This podcast, I listen to it every week. It's always so diverse with what goes on. It's always refreshing, and that's the only thing I leave with. Thank you for letting me be a part of your hour here today. Anybody listening to me on 2 times speed, like I always do, it sounds like a mouse. Hopefully, I sounded good for everybody out there. And just really appreciate the time and that everybody does whenever you sit here and listen to these things, whether you're in your car or in your office. It's really neat, Don, what you're doing here and providing us information from so many different sources.
Well, thank you, my friend. And how can people reach you and learn more about APM Terminals?
Yeah, APM Terminals. I'm here at the Port of LA. And so working here in the Pier 400 facility. So you can always reach out to us here at apmterminals.com.
Very good. And would you like to join us for a third time?
Yeah, let's see. 2 years. 2 years is not much time, much gap here. So I'm privileged to come back. But this is a hot topic, and I'm glad that we're able to sit here and talk about it. It's something that a lot of people are interested in. Hopefully, we gave a little bit of insight. It's also a little bit of a guessing game of what's going to occur. But we talked a little bit about what is the effects and what we're doing different, and hopefully, some people got some confidence that the plan is there, and we're not going to have. I'm looking through the screen here, through the video. I'm looking out in the harbor. There were 100 ships, 100 plus ships sitting out there at anchor, waiting to come in because the terminals and the supply chain and the railroads were not moving the cargo fast enough off the terminal and getting the empties back into us. That's the key. We have to keep these vessels moving. We don't want to have the delays that we saw in the past. And that is the focus right now. How do we make sure and plan ahead to where we don't go in a situation where we're having to tell a vessel to wait out at anchor?
The good news is there's still products coming in and products going out.
Yeah. We'll always consume. We're the U.S.
That's exactly right. And people need us, believe it or not. Well, thank you, my friend. Really appreciate you joining us again on an episode of the American Railroading Podcast. You've been wonderful. Don't go anywhere just yet, because I want to jump into my 2 cents. So having an efficient and stable supply chain in the U.S. helps businesses deliver, as Denson said earlier, deliver products to customers in a timely manner, which reduces operational costs and warehouse downtime, while increasing customer loyalty and retention. It also improves businesses' cash flow, profit margins, and creates new job opportunities as a result, which is all ultimately beneficial for the economy. Rail is a vital part of our supply chain and our economy. So the railroad industry as a whole plays a big part in the success of our supply chain. So according to an article in trains.com from Thursday, as we're recording this, Thursday, April 24th, 2025, weekly U.S. rail volumes continue to exceed 2024 levels with increases to both carload and intermodal traffic. Quoting statistics from the Association of American Railroads, week ending April 19th, 2025, shows total rail traffic of 496,053 carloads and intermodal units, which is an increase of 4.5% over the same week last year in 2024. 2025 year-to-date North American rail volume is 10,737,028 carloads and intermodal units, up 3.2% from the same time the first 16 weeks of last year in 2024. So, while trade discussions are being held in Washington, rail remains steadfast. And that's my 2 cents. So as a quick update to my friends that are interested in FEMSA and everything going on with FEMSA with HM264B. HM264B was the hold on the previously approved ability to ship LNG by rail tank cars, which was HM264. So I have reason to believe that FEMSA has lost the case there. So there was a lawsuit against FEMSA specifically for this particular ruling or potential ruling. So my understanding is that the ruling was that there was no impact study done. And as a result, the court ruled in favor of the plaintiff. Therefore, my understanding is that that ruling now has gone away. Essentially, it no longer exists. So it's almost as if HM264 never happened. So now, does it start all over again? Do they just let it lie? I mean, you can still ship LNG in an ISO container on a flat car with FRA approval. That's the good news. But shipping it in tank car, at least for the time being, looks like it's not going to happen. So they'll have to come up with an entirely new ruling, which they may very well do. I don't know. But the ruling that was there, that was on hold, has now essentially gone away like it never existed. At least that's my understanding. So if my friends at FEMSA want to correct me, feel free, and I'll make a correction on the next episode. But that is my understanding of that. Also, FEMSA's comment period for HM265 is ending. So while we're recording this, it's still available. But when this airs, it'll be gone by a couple of days or so. So the expiration date for comments is April 28th. And again, HM265 is the potential ruling on no longer allowing the AAR to be the sole provider of tank car certificates of construction or providing I believe it's M1002, the quality assurance program certifications for shops and so forth. So they can still do it, but they won't be the only sole provider of that. So I will keep you posted as I know more about the ruling itself. But as of now, the comment period has ended. Last and certainly not least, I'd like to dedicate this episode in the memory of my niece, Dr. JaeLynn Bobbie Stewart. Very proud to call her doctor. Unfortunately, we lost her in a tragic car accident on April 5th of 2025. We love you, JB, and we'll see you again here soon someday in the streets of heaven. And with that, I say God bless. Make it a great day, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us on the American Railroading Podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard, please subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. And if you have a topic you'd like us to cover on a future episode or want to support or sponsor the show, please visit our website at American Railroading.